Hello, everyone. Welcome back again to Intentional Grounding, our football podcast. I'm Tyler Spittle, joined by our co-host Mike Weir Jr. and Costa Vianas.
Good to be mentioned.
Yeah, thanks.
Can't do this without you guys.
I appreciate the acknowledgement.
As many of you know, in a week from now, or actually a few more days, since you'll be listening, or it'll take a while for us to get this up. Thursday, May 8th is the NFL first round, the NFL draft.
Woohoo!
And we are all very excited for it, much more than Mike shows. But to commemorate that, we are rolling out each of our own first round mock drafts.
Yeah. How's that? Was that better for you?
Yes, much better.
Okay. Darn it! Why did I think of saying that first?
So
I hate you, Costa.
Who doesn't hate me?
Anyway.
Go ahead, Tyler.
So our method for this, we're splitting this up into 2 episodes. Episode 1 will have picks 1 to 16. Episode 2 will be picks 17 to 32. And we're going to split this up 4 picks each. So we're going to go around, give our first 4 picks, discuss them a bit, and then move on to the next 4, and then continue on until we get to the end of the round.
And just as a heads up there, we are not taking into account any potential trades that will be occurring on the first round, as will inevitably happen.
Yeah.
So we're just going team by team where...
Trades are just too confusing.
Yeah, exactly. There's no way of knowing what will happen, but...
I tried taking that into account, and then I realized it was 1 o'clock, and 1 in the morning, I still didn't have my mock. I still didn't have past pick 3.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, if everything were to stay the same, this is who they'll take, straight up.
And then maybe this could be still a good idea of where some players will land, just not the exact pick or the exact team.
Exactly. So let's get into the fun stuff.
Yeah. So let's start this off. So I'll start with the first 4 picks. So for me, my top 4: Jadeveon Clowney going to the Texans, Sammy Watkins going to the Rams, Johnny Manziel going to the Jaguars, and Khalil Mack going to the Browns. Costa?
All right. Well, we have one difference. I have Clowney going as well, number 1 to Houston. I have the Rams also taking Watkins at 2. And instead of Manziel, I have Blake Bortles. Different quarterback, but, And then Khalil Mack going to Cleveland at 4.
And Mike?
And mine is like none of yours.
Mike saved it for last.
Yes. I have a very specific idea about how the draft is going to go down, which is probably the unpopular opinion. But that's why I'm going to, quantify it first by saying that I have never tried to do mock drafts before, and so I'm just going off of the best knowledge that I could. And I expect to be wrong. I expect in our review show to say that I got 0 out of 32 correct in terms of this mock draft.
Well, then why even bother?
What
are you doing here, Mike?
So when it turns out that Mike gets 100%, he's just going to be like...
No trades in the first round.
If Mike gets...
With all the trades, you still manage to be right.
If Mike gets 100%, I won't show up next week. Just because I don't want to...
Costa will leave our show.
I'll just take that week off. I don't want to be a part of that show.
Okay, so...
Mike's head won't fit through the door if he gets 100%.
So anyway, this is going to be my top 4. And like I said, I expect to be wrong. But I have the Texans taking Johnny Manziel as number 1.
Okay.
And because of that, Jadeveon Clowney falls to number 2. And I have the Jaguars then taking Blake Bortles, who would be the next quarterback up on the list, basically. Then I have the Browns taking Sammy Watkins, because I think they can pick up a value quarterback sometime later. And which the comments by the Browns head coach have already sort of indicated that they're not willing to draft a QB that early. So I think that they're going to wait on a QB for the later in the round, and in the meantime they can pair up Sammy Watkins with Josh Gordon. I still have Manziel going first beyond all other projections, just because I think I'm on the thought that the Texans will probably regret not getting Manziel, because and he fits what they need. They need a quarterback that can excite the crowd and just excite the crowd, sell tickets, and plus he's perfect for revitalizing Andre Johnson's late stage of his career. Again, I expect to be wrong, but I think the Texans would be amiss to pass on
Now,
Manziel.
I don't doubt that the Texans would draft Johnny Manziel, but if they do, it won't be at number one. I'm of the firm belief that if the Texans remain at number one, they draft Clowney or they trade back and get more picks, and then they can try and get Manziel, somewhere else within like the top 7 or 8 or whatever to get him if they want him that badly. Because I think they could get a lot more if they really wanted Manziel that bad. If they had any knowledge, knowing, Jacksonville, prefers Bortles over Manziel, and whatever the Raiders or Browns might skip over. I mean, I don't know. Like, I understand Manziel's a very, very popular guy. I mean, and he's also very polarizing. I mean, because like I said, it's basically 50-50 of the league. Like, half the league thinks he's a can't miss player. Like, you're stupid if you don't draft him, and the other half is like he's a project.
Well, look at what the Texans have to face in their division. I mean, if they in that scenario, if the Texans don't draft Manziel, then I truly believe that the Jaguars would instead draft Manziel. And if that's the case, then you have to look at how the Texans would be at that point. They have to face Andrew Luck twice a year, and then they would have to face off against Manziel twice a year in that scenario. So that's why I think it could come back to bite them to not draft Manziel. What if the Jaguars do take him? What if they like him better than Bortles? What if Manziel goes in there and just lights it up?
I think the only reason why the Jaguars wouldn't take Manziel, I mean, even though they are a team that's starving for ticket sales, I think, the way you sell tickets is by winning games. And I'm not saying Johnny Manziel can't win football games, but Gus Johnson, the head coach for the Panthers, Jaguars, sorry.
Gus Johnson? You mean Bradley?
Gus Bradley, did I say, sorry.
Gus Johnson's the announcer,
I know.
the commentator.
My B. See, I might just not come in next week anyway.
Acosta, maybe you should just, take the day off.
Yeah, I think there might be something in my Mountain Dew.
Facts straight.
Tyler, we spike his Mountain Dew after the show. Come on, man.
Anyway, but Gus Bradley, I think Bortles better, fits the style of play that he wants to go after. I seriously think you are going to need a certain type of coach that's going to want to take on Johnny Manziel, and I just don't think that that's what the Jaguars need, because they're taking a huge risk, because they've already got a guy that kind of played a similar style to Manziel in Blaine Gabbert, or they got rid of him, but they have Chad Henne. But
two vastly different quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. Blaine Gabbert was not nearly as regarded as highly as Johnny Manziel is. We didn't have nobody had debates before Gabbert's draft saying, should Gabbert go number 1 or all the way down to 8 or 6?
But I think that Bortles probably better fits, because they do a pro style offense, and again, I know they need a quarterback. But I just have a funny feeling that Manziel probably goes elsewhere,
Well, in that case, I also think then the Jaguars would definitely regret not drafting Manziel. I mean, in my view, you have to. There's no such thing as a sure thing in the draft.
No,
there really isn't. Any of these players could be boom or bust. So why not go for the guy who? What I would want to look for my quarterback, is he fiery? Is he competitive? Will he try to do what he can for the team on any given play? Manziel fits that description for me.
Right.
So that, me personally, I would prefer the guy, even if he's a project, if he's competitive, he has that fire in him that he wants to make a play every time, I would prefer to have that rather than the rookie who's, standard pro passer but still needs some work.
I think, again, we'll have to move on quickly to our next 4, but I think, just to wrap it up, if you are drafting a rookie quarterback, you want to put him in a position where he is able to win as soon as possible. And again, just based on the Jaguars' pro-style offense, I think Bortles better fits that. And in the right circumstance for Manziel, I think in the right circumstance, he could
Mm-hmm.
be one of the top quarterbacks.
But then
years
why
from now.
wouldn't the Jaguars take him? Because
Their system, because then they are basically saying we want to try and win 3 years from now. We don't want to try and win now.
You don't think Manziel could help them out win right now? I think
Not-
Manziel
they're not
helps
gonna
them
get to
win
the-
right now more than Blake Bortles. I
Well,
think
we'll
Blake
see.
Bortles would be okay. Would keep them competitive, but I think Manziel has a better chance of making them a winning team rather than just a staying afloat team.
I guess that's the thing we'll have to
Yeah,
watch.
we'll have to
'Cause
find
of
out.
course-
So now,
Yeah.
Of course, with how these drafts always work, the quarterbacks in the same years always get tied together.
well, either way, the
Like
top.
Matt Ryan, Joe Flacco.
Needless to say, the top 2 picks of this draft are going to influence how the rest of the draft goes. I mean,
So let's keep moving on. Mike, start us out. Give us your 5 to 8 picks.
5 through 8. Okay.
Yep.
So in my wacky draft, I'm gonna call it. So I believe that teams will jump on their needs pretty early. So I think the Raiders take Derek Carr because he's the last one of the top 3 quarterbacks left. So and that they desperately need a quarterback. Yes, they have Matt Shaw, but they need somebody they can build up, they can have for the future. Derek Carr at 6. I believe the Falcons take Khalil Mack because they probably want to improve their defense. I have Mike Evans going to the Buccaneers at 7. That makes a nice pair with Vincent Jackson. And I have the Vikings taking Jake Matthews because at this point they don't really have a quarterback that they want to reach for, and why not? I mean, get a good offensive lineman.
So for me, I have going down Raiders taking Greg Robertson, Atlanta taking Jake Matthews, Buccaneers get Bortles, and then the Vikings immediately go after Derek Carr to get their quarterbacks.
okay.
That'd be an interesting way for that to fall.
Tyler and I agree on the first. I have Greg Robinson going to
I'm the
open as
weird
well.
one. We get it.
All right. Well, no,
Costa.
hold on. I have
No, I know.
I have
Okay,
Greg.
go
I have
ahead.
Greg Robinson going to the Raiders at 5. I mean, they've done a lot to their team, but they still need offensive line help. Then I have the Falcons taking Jake Matthews again because that's probably their most glaring need is an offensive line. So why not take one of the best? Probably the best tackle in the draft. I have Mike Evans. I agreed with you, Mike. Mike Evans going to the Buccaneers because they need both a tight end and a receiver. So why not get the guy that is as big as a tight end, but he plays like a wide receiver. And then this is where I have Manziel going. I have Manziel going to Minnesota at 8.
Oh man.
Like I said,
I think there's no way he falls that far in the draft at all. But
see my one hold up. Like I said, with Manziel. Like I said, I look back and I look at the Browns. Just to go back real quick, I have them taking Khalil Mack because people made arguments for Mack to go number 1 overall in some cases. Saying that he's the best linebacker in the draft, and he fits with the Browns really well. And they've got another pick near the end of the second round, and they've got plenty of other picks to try because this draft is incredibly deep at the wide receiver and quarterback position. So it's like, why not be able to brush up at other, get the guys where the position's a little bit thinner earlier in the draft. And this is why I see Manziel. I think Manziel could also pop because Tyler has Manziel going to Tampa Bay. That could also be a landing spot.
No, I have Manziel going to Jacksonville.
Oh, Jacksonville. But you have
Bortles.
Bortles. I'm sorry.
To Tampa Bay, and then Derek Carr immediately afterwards.
Okay, so you have Bortles, which Tampa Bay said could still be in. They're still looking for. They could still consider drafting a quarterback.
Yeah, because they have a new regime. They're one of the teams that have a new regime going on.
Right.
So even though they have Glenn that they just drafted last year,
And they have Josh McCown.
who is older in age or up in age. So.
He's
right,
a stopgap.
but he's a stopgap. He is essentially what
But
Ryan Fitzgerald is to the Texans and what Matt Schaub is to the Raiders.
But it's more so that their front office doesn't seem sold on Glenn, even though he's only going to be in his second year this year.
Right.
Well, Lovie Smith's not sold on.
Well, right. That's
Yeah.
why he got McCown in, and
Exactly. So that's why I feel like that they're going to be sort of desperate to just jump on one of the quarterbacks early because
I just think though if again because just these other needs that these teams have and the Manziel, just imagine Manziel again. Like I said, there's a very good chance that he goes in the top 5 somewhere, but he does not get past 8 to the Vikings. He does not drop any further than that. And Minnesota's going to be frothing at the mouth at the idea of running an offense with Johnny Manziel and Adrian Peterson and Cordarrelle Patterson at wide receiver. I mean, granted, it might take a year or so to like fully develop that offense, but right there, like, I mean, they kind of in that instance become a team that could, if they don't make the playoffs, they're at least going to be competitive early on. They're going to cause a lot of frustration within the NFC North, because when we talked about the schedule last week, and we're like, the Vikings were the only team in the NFC North that were like, they won't make a whole lot of noise. They don't seem like a threat to the Lions, Bears, or Packers. Manziel makes them a threat. He fits with their offensive scheme.
Into Norv Turner's scheme?
Then that's
His
why
play action run-based scheme?
and that's why I went with Derek Carr. Well, at that position, once Bortles was gone, like because if they don't, they would probably target Bortles first. But since I have him going already,
But then, I just don't think a team would reach for Derek Carr that high. I think he would be a guy that a team trades back into the first round for near the bottom.
But see, I don't trust the Raiders brass to be that patient. That's why I have him going at the spot that he does, and also based on how I had the other players going too. So, and history has shown that teams will jump for players, especially in the first round.
But I think the fact that, I know we're all not huge fans of Matt Schaub, but I think the fact that he's there in Oakland means that they don't have to rush to reach for a quarterback, because I want to make sure that you also get players that you can build around a quarterback, so they could reasonably consider going in and getting like an A.J. McCarron or a Jimmy Garoppolo later, someone that they could, if you get like a Greg Robinson or Jake Matthews at 5 to build up that offensive line so you can protect your rookie quarterback, that's just the reasoning I have behind it. But again, like, it's just like I'm trying to have like these thought processes, and I think Manziel with Norv Turner works well with quarterbacks, and I think he's a guy that would play to Manziel, because Manziel isn't like, he runs, but he doesn't run. He only runs when he absolutely has to, and I think if you have, I think he could run an offense that works primarily out of the play action pass.
Well, but see, but that's why I have no problem with him on the Texans. You know what I mean? Because he can still play the pro style type game. But it's like what every scout says. It's just when the play breaks down, I see him as being more of a Russell Wilson, but even more special about it. Where he might miss a short crossing pattern, but then he'll launch a 50-yard touchdown pass out of that same play.
I will say this, and this is basically a moot point, because we're not discussing potential trades. But again, I do see Manziel going to Houston if they decide to trade that number 1 overall pick. That's the only, like, that I can see Manziel going. That's only if they decide to trade the number 1 pick.
I would just say that horribly depends on where they end up, though.
If they can land safely within the top 6 somewhere, if they can remain in the top 6, I think they can still get Manziel.
Maybe.
Because again, they wouldn't make that trade unless they had knowledge that,
It's possible, but he would have to get past 3 QB needy teams.
Like I said, well, maybe you just never know what teams like the Browns or Raiders or like how much they might want. Like I said, Jadeveon Clowney is going number 1 overall no matter what. I feel, if it's to Houston or someone else that trades for it. But yeah, that's my point.
Maybe we should move on to the next grouping of
let's head on. Costas,
players.
Tell us what the Bills get.
So we're doing 9 through 12. So number 9 to the Bills, I have Taylor Lewin going. Then at 10, I have the Lions taking Justin Gilbert.
Me too.
And then at 11, this was a tough one, but I have the Titans taking Clinton Dix. And then at 12, I have the Giants getting that outside linebacker Anthony Barr.
All reasonable picks. Mine's slightly different. I had the Bills taking C.J. Mosley. History has shown that the Bills like to, build up their defense as much as possible, and in this point in my draft, Mike Evans is gone, Ebron's still on the board, but I don't think they're probably sold on any of the offensive weapons at that point. So Justin Gilbert to the Lions, I have the same. This one I think is interesting. Teddy Bridgewater to the Titans. The Titans need a quarterback. They clearly don't trust Jake Locker. They didn't pick up his 5th-year option. I think this is a good place for Teddy Bridgewater to fall to. And especially with Ken Wisenhunt as the head coach, that'd be a nice combination for them. And then I had the Giants taking Greg Robinson.
So you have him falling all the way out of the top 10.
Yeah, remember my
Yeah.
quantifier.
He's
I'm
wacky.
Yes, this is my wacky
Well,
draft.
I'll tell you one thing. If that happens, the Giants will be very happy.
Yeah.
They hope you're right.
Okay, good. Well, there you go, Giants fans. Be happy.
So for me, I have the Bills taking Ebron. I feel like that, like they could really use something to help juice up their offense, and tight end in particular is something that they're weak in. And then after that, I have the Lions being able to land Mike Evans at the end of that. I feel like they'll be beneficiary.
I mean, I wouldn't want to face the Lions offense if Mike Evans slipped down that far. I mean, hell, if I'm the Vikings, I would just draft Mike Evans just to keep him away from Detroit. Like if Manziel and Bortles, if all the good quarterbacks are gone by the time they pick, I just take Mike Evans, keep him away from Detroit.
And then at 11, I have Aaron Donald, and then round up at 12, Anthony Barr for the Giants.
Okay.
Cool.
And then one other thing I want to say for Detroit, how you both have Gilbert going.
Mm-hmm.
Like one thing I keep reading about is how the front office is actually really proud with their young corners. That even though like they're less experienced, they have more. They feel more that they're going to be able to build up more. So that's why I'm hearing that they might not jump on corner that early.
Well, I think the idea though is like cornerback is one of those positions where you can't ever have enough good corners, and since they are young, you want also that level of competition. You want to bring in another player that could push one, and who knows, like Justin Gilbert could get drafted by the Lions at 10. He shows up to training camp, and he could honestly be their best corner like right out of the bat already, and then he's kind of pushing the other guys to get better. So
and plus, the philosophy of you can never have enough corners. Imagine, remember the division they're playing in.
Exactly.
They're going against Aaron Rodgers and Jay Cutler and
Matthew Stafford.
If your draft prediction comes true, Johnny Manziel. So,
right.
The Lions have to keep beefing up their defense because, at times their defensive line has always been good, but their secondary hasn't been that strong. So, why wouldn't you keep trying to improve it if the guy's there?
It's kind of odd that Detroit doesn't have that strong of a secondary, given that they have to practice against Stafford and Calvin Johnson every day. You would think that the guys would be able to properly defend a wide receiver.
I think there's a certain level of when they're on your team, you defend a little bit differently when it's not your teammate.
Right. Yeah. One thing I want to point out for the Bills. That was another tough one because they have a lot of needs. But I think with EJ Manuel, because between their running game and they have a couple of young wide receivers, I think then the point is the next objective for them is to protect EJ Manuel. Like you need a big, strong body to be in front to make sure that he has the time to throw and. Because really, any quarterback, if you have a strong offensive line in front of any quarterback, then that quarterback has every opportunity to perform well. So I think that they'd want to shore up that line up front for EJ.
I'm definitely hoping that your guys' picks are more correct because I personally would love still for Ebron to fall down to the Ravens, but I just don't have that type of optimism right now. So we'll see. So I guess we're finish up the first half. I have at 13 the Rams' second pick, getting Clint Dix.
Me too.
Immediately after the Bears get the other big name safety, Calvin Pryor. Then at 15 I have the Steelers managing to grab Justin Gilbert, and to round it out 16 the Cowboys getting Taylor Lewin.
Okay, so you have him dropping. For me, because this is the reason why I don't have, a lot of mock drafts have the Rams taking Greg Robinson with the number 2 pick. Since I have them taking Watkins at 2, they take Zach Martin at 13. They get their offensive lineman still later in the draft. I have Aaron Donald going to the Bears at 14. Mm-hmm. Then the Steelers, since Justin Gilbert is off the board, they get Darqueze Dennard to be that because I guess they're not sure who it's a toss up between who the second best corner is after Gilbert, but I think a lot of people will say he is. And then I have Calvin Pryor going to the Cowboys at 16.
Most of my selections in there kind of fall in line with you guys. I had Clinton Dix to the Rams for that second pick. Aaron Donald to the Bears, just like you said, Tyler.
That's what I said.
Was it?
Yeah, I was Calvin Pryor for the Bears.
My bad. Sorry. Maybe I'm the one who should be leaving now. Okay, so the Steelers have a history of drafting offensive linemen, and at this point on my board, Taylor Lewin is still on there. So I think the Steelers go O-line, and then I have Calvin Pryor going to the Cowboys.
Yeah.
I
can agree. I can agree with offensive linemen for the Steelers.
Yeah.
If one of the, like I said, by the time the Rams pick at 13, I have the top 4 offensive linemen off the board by that point. But if one of them happens to slip down to the Steelers, then I can definitely picture them going offensive line instead of defensive back. Even though I do think that defensive back is their biggest need since they are so old in the secondary.
But how many years has it been that the Steelers' offensive line is constantly reshuffled, constantly getting hurt? It's a curse. It really is, but you can't really do anything.
Whoever they drafted offensive line as a rookie could potentially get hurt. It's just
That's was it last year or 2 years ago?
Yeah,
David DeCastro.
Yeah,
and also Pouncey got hurt.
Well, of course, obviously we can't predict for
injuries.
injuries.
It was both their rookies got.
Yeah.
And then, although one other thing I want to say about Pittsburgh is that, and this is a lot of the sources I was reading, is that one of the main reasons why they wouldn't pick Denard at that spot is just because of his size. He's smaller than what they'd want in the corner.
Well, I think he's like what, like 5'11".
5'11".
Yeah, I don't know. I think corners, as long as they're physical and aggressive, I think then that can make up for their size a little bit. Because even if he goes up against a receiver that's like 6'2", 6'3", or taller, then that could cause a bit of a problem. But at that size, you can still be a bit annoying for a wide receiver because I think Denard ran a pretty decent 40 times, so he's got some quickness and athleticism. So
for some reason, I just got the mental image of Calvin Johnson just like his hand and sit and watch Denard go like I'm sure that provided a great visual over this audio podcast.
Yeah, so the Steelers could go. They're either going to go secondary or they're going to go offensive line if one of the top 4 ranked linemen drops to 15.
Oh yeah,
it's a coin flip there.
And then another thing I want to say, in picking this, one of the players that gave me the most problem is Calvin Pryor.
Yeah.
Because so him and Clinton Dix are talked about as being the two main safety, two big safeties this year's draft. Probably the only 2 safeties that will go in the first round, and they're usually linked pretty close together as far as where their draft is. That's mostly because the teams that are in biggest need of the safeties, which are
they're all bunched together.
Yeah, Lions, Titans, Rams, Bears, Cowboys, Ravens. They're all in need of safeties, but they're mostly all in need of free safeties. And the thing is that Calvin Pryor is more of a strong safety.
Well, they say he's a hard-hitting, he's a hard tackler with ball-hawking ability.
Yes.
So he's somewhere in between. He could play either position.
So that's kind of a lot of sources reading, they're saying there's one source, one place I did read is they specifically then said Cowboys or Bears wouldn't want him because he's more of a strong safety, and yet they end up giving him to the Ravens. It's just so bizarre. I could definitely see Calvin Pryor dropping just because the teams aren't exactly looking for his skill set.
Well, also the fact that I have him going, the Cowboys are the enigma of this draft because there's so many rumors going about the Cowboys and what they do. Apparently Jerry Jones is willing to do anything to get to draft Johnny Manziel. We were talking about
You'd have to do a lot.
You'd have to do a lot, right? But you wouldn't put it past Jerry Jones to try something like that.
Yeah, are you gonna give up all that to have Johnny Manziel just sit on your bench as Tony Romo plays, or do you?
Well, right, but
find a way
my
to
point
snake
being
out
that
Tony
it
Romo?
sounds like the Cowboys are prepared to try and do something big. You know, like Jerry Jones, they're desperate to at least go 9-7. Like they don't want to go 8-8 for a fourth year in a row. So, you know, if any one team is going to make that move during the draft where you're like, oh my God, what in the world just happened? It's going to be the Cowboys. You know, so I mean, I have them taking Pryor at 16, but I have a hard time believing the Cowboys will be picking at 16. I imagine them trying to pull off something, maybe not to get Manziel, but you know, I mean, who knows? They're going to be the one team I'll be most interested to see what they decide to do. Not the Texans at number one. Nah, the Cowboys.
And watch them do absolutely nothing.
Yeah, and then watch them again. Another reason for me not to come in next week if they end up doing nothing. If they take Pryor at 16, I'm like, all right, you know, I called that one, but you know.
I'm just imagining Costa just like sitting here. I called that one.
But I was expecting him to do something else.
So yes, that is the first half of the first round for the NFL draft.
Wow, we got through that quick.
Be sure to tune into our second episode where we'll go through picks 17 to 32, starting with, of course, our favorite team, the Ravens.
Yeah.
In case we haven't like told you guys that like a million times already over like the past 5 episodes.
I thought this was a Redskins podcast. We're in Baltimore.
Okay, I don't know where.
Never mind.
Yeah, that one felt kind of flat.
Oh, yeah.
And if you don't hear Mike in the next episode, you'll know why.
Well, at this point, Mike's talking about not coming in. I'm talking about not coming in. Tyler will just end up hosting the show all by himself next week at this point.
This was Tyler's plan to host this episode.
Pretty
get
much.
Us to like
Screw
battle
up.
over and screw up and.
But anyway, so thanks for watching our
Watching.
listening. Thanks for
watching with your ears.
Make sure to follow us on Twitter at Intent Grounding. Make sure to like us on like and subscribe to us on YouTube at Intentional Grounding, and like our Facebook page, also Intentional Grounding.
Yes.
That one's intentional grounding.
Yeah,
not
yeah.
acceptable.
YouTube,
Yes.
YouTube is Intent Grounding. The username's
Okay.
Intent Grounding, just like the Twitter page.
And join us for part 2. Thank you, everyone.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
All right. See you guys.